Welcome to a deep dive. Imagine this. You filed a federal workers' comp claim. It's been accepted. You're getting medical care, maybe wage loss benefits. Then you get this letter. It says OWCP wants you to see their doctor for a second opinion exam. What does that even mean? What happens next?
Yeah, that's a letter that can definitely make your stomach drop if you're not expecting it. It signals a pretty significant moment in your claim.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've pulled together sources covering the official process, sure, but also the, practical realities. What happens when doctors disagree? Which, spoiler alert, seems pretty common.
Oh, very common.
Your rights in all this, and maybe most importantly, how to actually prepare yourself.
Right. Our mission here is to sort of cut through the jargon and the complexity. We want to give you the key insights, the practical steps, so you really understand why this exam might be ordered and, well, how you can navigate it effectively if you ever get that notice.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So you get the letter. What is this OWCP second opinion exam, officially speaking?
Officially, once your federal work injury claim, the CA1 for traumatic injury or CA2 for occupational disease, once that's been accepted under FACA, the Federal Employees Compensation Act,
Okay.
OWCP has the authority, the right, to require you, the injured employee, to attend one of these exams.
And who's the doctor? Is it just like anyone they pick?
No, that's a key point. The doctor is supposed to be independent, meaning they've had zero prior involvement with your case. OWCP selects them, usually through some kind of directory or rotation system.
Okay.
And typically, it's a board-certified specialist in whatever medical field is relevant to your specific injury.
Got it. So an orthopedist for a knee, a neurologist for maybe a head injury, something like that.
Exactly.
What information does OWCP give this doctor? Do they get your whole case file?
They get the relevant parts of your official case file, yeah. Your medical reports, claim forms, and crucially, they get what's called the Statement of Accepted Facts, or SOA.
Statement of Accepted Facts. Why is that so important?
Because it lays out exactly what OWCP has formally accepted as your work-related injury and the medical conditions resulting from it. The second opinion doctor is supposed to base their evaluation on those accepted facts and conditions, not, something else entirely.
Okay, so the scope is defined by what's already accepted. What questions are they asking this doctor to answer?
They're usually trying to get clarity on key medical issues. Things like, is the accepted condition resolved now? Does the employee still have limitations or work restrictions because of that accepted injury? If so, what exactly are those restrictions? Can they do light duty, full duty? Or maybe is a specific treatment your doctor recommended, like surgery, actually necessary and related to the work injury?
Right. So the official purpose is verification. Verifying the diagnosis, checking on ongoing disability, figuring out work capacity, assessing treatment plans.
Precisely. It's OWCP's mechanism for getting an independent medical assessment to make sure the claim status, the benefits being paid, still lines up with the current medical reality, according to this outside doctor.
Okay, that's the official line. But let's talk about what it means for you, the claimant. First thing, DFCO.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. You must attend this exam if OWCP schedules it. The regulations are pretty clear. They give OWCP broad authority here. They can require exams as often and at such times and places as OWCP considers reasonably necessary.
Wow. And if you don't show up.
Big mistake. Failing to attend without a really, really good reason, like a documented medical emergency you couldn't avoid, or actively obstructing the exam.
Obstructing,
Right.
like being difficult.
Yeah, refusing to cooperate, that kind of thing. Doing either of those can lead straight to suspension of your benefits. If something truly unavoidable happens, you need to contact OWCP immediately before the appointment if possible and provide proof. But the default is you go.
Okay, crystal clear. Attendance is mandatory. Who pays for this? The doctor's time, your travel.
OWCP pays the doctor's fee directly, and they're required to reimburse you for reasonable travel expenses, mileage, maybe tolls, plus any lost wages if you had to take time off your job to attend the exam.
That's good to know. So you have to go, but you won't be out of pocket for it. Now, here's where we get into that practical reality you mentioned, the insider view. Officially, it's for verification. But why might OWCP really be ordering one of these? What are the common triggers?
Right, this is a really critical point to understand. While verification is the official reason, these exams are very often ordered when OWCP itself, or sometimes your employing agency, has questions or concerns about your claim, about the ongoing need for benefits, basically.
So it can signal increased scrutiny, maybe doubting something. What raises those flags?
Several things tend to trigger these. A big one is if your own treating doctor's medical reports are, well, lacking. Maybe they're too vague, just saying employee remains unable to work without explaining why medically, or listing objective findings.
Just a note saying no work.
Exactly. That often doesn't give OWCP enough solid medical rationale. Another trigger is if the medical evidence suggests your condition should logically be improving by now, but your restrictions aren't changing, and there's no clear explanation for why recovery seems stalled.
Okay. What else?
Requesting a significant treatment, like surgery, especially if OWCP isn't fully convinced it's directly needed because of the original accepted injury, they might want an outside opinion before approving something major.
And you mentioned the employing agency. They can push for this.
Yes, absolutely. If your agency doesn't agree with your work restrictions or they think you should be back at work in some capacity, they can specifically request that OWCP order a second opinion exam to evaluate your current status.
So getting this notice, it's not just routine paperwork then. It often means someone is actively questioning your claim status.
That's often the case, yes. It strongly suggests they might be looking for medical evidence that could potentially support reducing or even terminating your wage loss benefits. Some sources even describe it, maybe a bit dramatically but pointedly, as potentially the beginning of the end for benefits if you aren't prepared for what comes next.
Wow. Okay, that definitely frames it differently. Not just an appointment, but a potential turning point. So let's say you go to the exam. What happens if this OWCP doctor comes back with an opinion that's totally different from your own treating doctors? That seems likely to happen sometimes.
It's incredibly common. You might see disagreements on the diagnosis itself, the extent of your disability, the specific work restrictions you need, or whether a certain treatment is appropriate.
How does OWCP handle that? Do they just flip a coin? Or automatically believe their doctor?
Not automatically, no, but it's not a simple he said, she said situation either. OWCP is supposed to weigh the conflicting medical opinions based on something called their probative value.
Probative value. Sounds legalistic. What does that mean in plain English here?
Think of it like this. How convincing is the report? How much weight should it carry? OWCP looks at how thorough the report is, how well-reasoned the doctor's conclusions are. Crucially, are those conclusions well supported by objective medical evidence? Things like physical exam findings, measurements, test results, imaging studies.
Okay, so it's not just who the doctor is, but the quality and detail of their medical explanation that matters most.
Exactly. A really well-rationalized report from a specialist, even the OWCP selected one, that clearly explains the why behind their conclusions, backed up with objective findings. That report can definitely carry more weight, have higher probative value than maybe a shorter, more conclusory note from another doctor, even your treating physician, if that note just states opinions without the detailed medical backup.
So like your family doctor writing, patient can't work, versus an OWCP orthopedic surgeon detailing specific range of motion limits, strength tests, and concluding light duty is possible.
That's a perfect example. OWCP can, and often will, make their decision based on the opinion they find more persuasive, better explained, and better supported by the objective medical facts presented in the report.
But what if you have a situation where both doctors are, say, equally qualified specialists? Your treating orthopedist and the OWCP orthopedist. And both provide detailed, well-reasoned reports, but they reach completely opposite conclusions on a key issue.
Now that is what OWCP defines as a true conflict of medical opinion.
A conflict, okay.
It's a specific term of art. It happens when you have two physicians, usually specialists of essentially equal weight and credibility, who look at the same evidence and arrive at fundamentally opposing conclusions on a medically significant issue.
Like one says surgery is necessary due to the injury, the other says it's absolutely not related or needed.
Exactly. Or one says total disability, the other says capable of full-time light duty. A direct, irreconcilable difference between two credible, well-supported opinions.
Does the system have a specific way to handle that? A tiebreaker?
It does. This is a crucial rule under FACA, found in the regulations. If a true conflict like that exists, OWCP cannot just pick one. They must resolve the impasse.
How?
They do it by sending you to a third doctor This doctor is often called a referee physician or an impartial medical examiner, IME.
Okay, the referee. Makes sense.
And this referee is, again, supposed to be an independent, board-certified specialist with no prior involvement. They review the entire case file, including those two conflicting reports. They might examine you again, or they might just review the records. Their specific job is to provide an independent evaluation to resolve that specific point of disagreement.
And how much weight does the referee's opinion carry? Is it the final word?
OWCP gives the referee's opinion special weight. That's the official term. Which basically means, unless there's a really obvious flaw in the referee's report, like they clearly didn't review key evidence or their reasoning makes no sense, their opinion is usually considered the deciding factor. It breaks the tie on that specific medical issue.
So the referee's view on whether you can work or need that surgery, or if your condition is work-related, that could be incredibly impactful.
Hugely impactful. It often determines OWCP's next steps regarding your benefits or medical treatment for that contested issue.
All right, so let's follow the path where the second opinion, not even necessarily a conflict yet, just the initial second opinion comes back unfavorably. It says you can work more than your doctor thinks, or your condition is resolved. What's OWCP's typical next step?
If that second opinion report contains medical evidence suggesting your benefits should be reduced or stopped, OWCP will usually issue a formal notice. It's typically called a notice of proposed termination, or maybe notice of proposed reduction of compensation.
Proposed, so it's not final yet.
Correct. That word proposed is key. It's basically OWCP saying, based on this new medical evidence, we are planning to cut off or reduce your benefits effective on X date. But critically, this notice gives you a specific window of time, usually just 30 days to respond before they make that decision final.
Only 30 days. That sounds really tight.
It is very tight, and you absolutely need to use that window effectively. This 30-day period is arguably your most critical opportunity to prevent the proposed action from becoming final.
What's the best way to respond in that short time frame?
You need to gather and submit strong counter-evidence, fast. Ideally, you work immediately with your treating physician. Get them to write a detailed, comprehensive rebuttal report.
A rebuttal?
Yes. Their report needs to specifically address the findings and reasoning in the second opinion report, point by point if necessary, and explain why they disagree, using their own medical rationale and objective findings to support their ongoing opinion about your condition and limitations. You might also submit results from any new diagnostic tests or even argue that there were procedural flaws in how the second opinion exam was conducted, if that's the case.
So the goal is to convince OWCP within 30 days that the second opinion is flawed or outweighed by your doctor's evidence.
Exactly. If you can show with solid medical evidence that you still require the benefits, or maybe that OWCP didn't follow its own rules for the exam, you might successfully prevent the termination or reduction. But ignoring that 30-day deadline or just sending a weak response, that's incredibly risky. Extensions are very rarely granted.
Okay, that 30-day response window is absolutely vital. What other rights do you have in this whole second opinion process, especially if things seem to be going sideways?
You do have rights, and knowing them is crucial. First and foremost, you always have the right to seek help. Consult with an advocate or an attorney who specializes in federal workers' compensation. Their guidance can be invaluable.
Can you bring someone like that into the exam room with you, your lawyer, or maybe a family member?
Generally, no. OWCP's rules are pretty strict on this. You typically cannot bring an attorney or friend or family member into the actual examination room. There might be very limited exceptions for specific documented needs, but it's not the norm. If somehow the doctor allows someone to be present as a silent witness, that person absolutely cannot interfere, ask questions, or speak during the exam.
Okay. What about recording? Can I just use my phone to record the audio or video?
Absolutely not. That's a huge no-no. Recording the exam audio or video is explicitly forbidden by OWCP regulations. Trying to secretly record it or even openly recording it against their rules can lead to immediate suspension of your benefits. Don't even think about it.
Got it. No recording. What about having your own doctor there to observe?
That you do have a right to do. You can arrange for your treating physician to be present during the second opinion exam as an observer. However, you are responsible for paying for your doctor's time and any associated costs. So while it's a right, it's often prohibitively expensive and therefore not commonly done.
Okay. After the exam is done, do you just have to wait and see if you get that proposed action letter? Or can you get a copy of the second opinion report sooner?
You absolutely have the right to get a copy of that report, and you should. Don't wait. As soon as you think the report might be available, request it from your OWCP claims examiner Or check the eComp portal if you use that. Get your hands on it ASAP.
Why is getting it early so important?
Because it gives you and your treating physician a chance to review it before OWCP potentially proposes cutting your benefits. If there are inaccuracies, omissions, or points you strongly disagree with, you can start formulating your rebuttal strategy right away rather than scrambling during that tight 30-day window.
And if the report is unfavorable, what's the formal process for challenging it, besides the rebuttal during the 30-day window?
First, review it meticulously with your treating physician. Have them prepare that detailed written rebuttal we talked about, countering the specific findings with medical reasoning and evidence. Second, if you genuinely believe the second opinion report directly contradicts your treating physician's equally well-supported opinion on a key medical issue.
Creating that conflict.
Exactly. If you think a true conflict exists between two equally credible specialists, you should formally request a referee examination from OWCP in writing, explain why you believe there's a conflict, reference the conflicting reports, and cite the need for an impartial medical exam under the regulations mentioning 20 CFR Section 10.321 might help.
Okay, and what if, despite your rebuttal, OWCP issues a final decision to terminate or reduce benefits? What then?
Then you move into the formal appeal process. You have several options, each with different rules and deadlines. You can request reconsideration from the district office, usually within 1 year, but you need new evidence or a strong legal argument. You can request a hearing, either oral or just a review of the written record before an OWCP hearing representative. This usually has a tight 30-day deadline from the decision. It lets you testify or submit more evidence. Or you can appeal to the Employees' Compensation Appeals Board, ECCAB. That's usually within 180 days. ECCAB reviews the existing case record for legal errors. You generally can't submit new evidence there.
Wow. Several levels. Sounds complex.
It is. The appeal process has a lot of procedural requirements. This is definitely another point where having experienced representation can make a huge difference.
One quick thing while all this is going on, maybe appeals are pending. Can you still get medical treatment for your injury?
Generally, yes. You usually have the right to continue receiving reasonable and necessary medical care for the accepted condition unless or until OWCP issues a specific decision denying that particular treatment or the claim overall. And importantly, even if a claim is ultimately denied, that door isn't always permanently closed. If your condition changes or new medical evidence comes to light later, you can often submit that new evidence and ask OWCP to reopen the claim. Don't just give up if the injury persists.
Okay, this sounds like a process where being proactive and informed is absolutely key. Let's shift gears to maybe the most practical advice. What are the absolute best practices? What should someone listening do to protect their claim when facing one of these exams?
Great question. This is where you can really exert some control. And it starts, interestingly, maybe even before you ever get an exam notice. It starts with your choice of treating physician.
How does that initial choice impact a potential second opinion later?
Well, under FECA, you get the initial choice of doctor. It's vital to choose not just any doctor, but a qualified specialist for your type of injury. Board certified is usually best, but just as important, you need a specialist who understands or is willing to learn the specifics of the OWCP system. Someone who will provide detailed, well-rationalized medical reports.
Rationalized meaning?
Meaning reports that don't just state conclusions, but explain the medical reasoning behind them. They need to clearly describe your symptoms, your limitations, and crucially, connect them specifically to the accepted work injury, using objective findings, exam results, test data.
So it's about the quality of the documentation they provide OWCP from the start.
Exactly. OWCP gives much more weight to opinions from specialists who provide that clear medical rationale and objective evidence. Vague notes like, patient needs time off, just don't carry the same weight, especially when compared later to a detailed specialist report. Also, be aware of provider limitations. Chiropractors, for example, are primarily recognized only for spinal subluxation confirmed by X-ray. For opinions on disability or other conditions, you generally need an MD or DO specialist.
Okay, so choose your initial doctor wisely. What else?
Keep your medical documentation consistently strong and up-to-date throughout your claim. Every visit, make sure your doctor's report addresses your current symptoms, your work capacity, and explicitly links everything back to the accepted injury, supported by those objective findings. This creates a robust, consistent medical record.
Makes sense. Build a strong foundation. Now, the exam notice actually arrives. How do you prepare for that specific appointment?
Okay, first, read that appointment letter carefully. Understand why they're sending you. It often lists the specific questions the doctor needs to answer. Refresh your memory on exactly what conditions are accepted in your claim. Your focus in the exam needs to be squarely on those accepted conditions and how they affect you now.
Should you bring medical records with you?
OWCP is supposed to send the file, but it's usually a good idea to bring copies of your most recent and relevant reports yourself, like maybe the latest MRI report summary or your last few progress notes from your specialist, and a list of current medications, just in case the doctor doesn't have everything or you need to quickly clarify something. But don't bring, your whole life's medical history or stuff unrelated to the accepted injury. Keep it focused. Logistically, simple things matter. Plan your route. Arrive early. Lateness is a bad look. Dress appropriately comfortable clothes that allow the doctor to examine the injured area easily. And mentally prepare. Plan to be polite, cooperative, but also clear and firm about your limitations.
Okay, let's talk about during the exam itself. How should you act? How should you answer questions? This seems critical.
This is probably the most critical part of the interaction, the absolute key. Be completely honest and accurate. Do not exaggerate your symptoms or your limitations. Credibility is everything here.
Why is exaggeration so bad?
Because these doctors are often very experienced in performing these types of evaluations. They're trained to look for inconsistencies, signs of symptom magnification, or Waddell signs for back pain, things like that. If they even suspect you're exaggerating, it will likely be noted in the report and will seriously undermine your entire claim's credibility with OWCP. Stick to the facts of how you feel today. Be consistent. What you tell the second opinion doctor should match what you've been telling your own doctor and what's documented in your records.
What if they ask about things unrelated to the injury? Personal stuff, other health issues.
Try to politely steer the conversation back to the accepted work injury and its effects. Answer direct questions honestly, but briefly. Avoid volunteering unrelated information. You could say something like, I understand you need a full picture, but my main concern today is explaining how my work-related back injury limits my ability to sit and lift. Keep the focus clear. During the physical examination part, cooperate and do what's asked, but listen to your body. If a movement causes significant pain related to your injury, stop the movement and clearly state why. For example, I need to stop lifting my arm there. It causes sharp pain in my injured shoulder.
So don't push through severe pain just to seem cooperative.
Exactly. Pushing through severe pain misrepresents your actual functional limitations. But conversely, don't refuse to do something you can do, or pretend something hurts when it doesn't. Just be truthful about your real limits. Remember, consistency checks, they might test the same thing in different ways. Honesty is the only safe policy.
Honesty, accuracy, consistency, focus. Got it.
Yeah.
What about right after you walk out of the exam room? Anything you should do immediately?
Yes, definitely. While it's all fresh in your mind, take detailed notes. Write down the date, time, location. Estimate how long you actually spent with the doctor versus maybe with staff or waiting. What specific tests or movements did they have you do? What key questions did they ask? What were your answers?
Like creating your own record of the event.
Precisely. Note your overall impression. Were they thorough? Did they seem dismissive? Note anything unusual. Get staff names if you can. This contemporaneous documentation can be incredibly valuable later if the doctor's written report contains factual inaccuracies about what happened during the exam. Your notes provide your version of events recorded immediately after.
And then follow up proactively, like you said before.
Absolutely. Don't just sit back and wait. Request a copy of the report from OWCP as soon as possible. Review it carefully, ideally side by side with your treating physician. If it's unfavorable or has errors, jump on preparing that detailed rebuttal with your doctor. And again, if you see the direct conflict between equally strong opinions, don't hesitate to formally request the referee exam. Being proactive is your best strategy.
That's a fantastic list of best practices. So helpful. Now, let's flip it. What are the biggest mistakes, the common red flags people should absolutely avoid during this second opinion process?
Okay, top mistakes that can really damage your claim based on the sources. Number one, easily, missing the exam or being significantly late without getting prior approval from OWCP. That's almost a guaranteed suspension of benefits right there.
Okay, don't miss the appointment.
Number two, inconsistencies or perceived exaggeration. If the doctor notes anything that suggests you're magnifying symptoms or what you say doesn't line up with objective findings or past reports, your credibility just tanks.
Right. Be honest.
Number three, being difficult. Argumentative, combative, uncooperative with the doctor or their staff. That will be noted in the report, and it hurts you. Stay polite, stay focused. Don't use the exam to vent about your boss or complain about OWCP.
Keep it professional.
Yes. Number four, Getting off topic, don't volunteer lots of unrelated personal details or discuss other medical problems unless directly asked and relevant. Keep the focus on the accepted injury. Number 5, ignoring your own treating doctor's advice while this is ongoing, especially if their advice conflicts with the second opinion before OWCP makes a final decision. Always talk to your treating doctor or representative about how to proceed.
And you mentioned one earlier that feels very modern.
Ah, yes. Number 6, social media and real-world activities. Don't post pictures or videos of yourself doing activities that contradict the physical limitations you're claiming. If you tell the doctor you can barely walk, don't post vacation photos of yourself hiking or dancing. Investigators do look, and it can be used against you. Live your life consistently with your documented limitations.
That social media one is a huge pitfall these days.
Yeah.
Good reminder. Let's just quickly circle back to something you touched on, why some medical opinions seem to matter more than others to OWCP. Could you just summarize the weighting factor again?
Sure. It really boils down to OWCP's evaluation of the evidence's quality and persuasiveness. Generally, they give more weight, higher probative value to opinions from board-certified specialists in the relevant medical field.
Special status matters.
It does. And equally important is the rationale. The opinion needs to be well explained, detailed, and clearly supported by objective medical findings, exam results, tests, imaging. Conclusory statements like patient is disabled carry less weight than reports that explain why and how, linking it to the injury.
So a detailed report from a relevant specialist is usually strongest.
That tends to be the case, yes. Now, your treating physician's opinion is definitely important, especially if they are specialists and provide those kinds of detailed, rationalized reports. They know your history. But their opinion doesn't automatically override a similarly well-supported opinion from an OWCP second opinion specialist, or especially from the referee doctor.
And the referee gets top billing, essentially.
If it goes to a referee due to a conflict, yes. The referee's opinion is given that special weight. Assuming it's well-reasoned and considers all the evidence, OWCP typically relies heavily on it to resolve the specific medical conflict.
Okay, that clarifies the hierarchy, more or less. It's about the quality of the evidence and the reasoning behind the opinion.
Exactly. And just remembering, again, those provider limitations, MDs and DOs, are key for most disability opinions. Other providers like PAs or NPs usually need co-signatures, and chiropractors have that very limited scope regarding spinal subluxation only.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big picture takeaway for someone listening to this deep dive?
The main takeaway is that facing an OWCP second opinion exam is a really significant event in your federal workers' comp claim. It usually means your claim is getting a closer look, and the outcome can definitely affect your future benefits.
So understanding the official process is one thing, but really grasping the practical realities, the potential stakes, your rights, that's crucial.
Absolutely. Your best approach involves preparation, starting with good medical evidence from day one. It involves proactive communication, understanding the exam process, being honest and credible during the exam.
And knowing how to respond effectively if the report comes back unfavorably.
Right. Whether that's through a strong rebuttal from your treating doctor or formally requesting that referee exam if a true conflict exists, diligence and proactive steps are key.
This whole process really underscores just how vital solid, consistent medical evidence is throughout the life of a claim. And it shows the system's mechanism for trying to resolve differing medical viewpoints.
Yeah, it's complex. Managing these claims, especially at the second opinion stage, definitely requires attention to detail and making sure your medical reality is presented clearly and convincingly.
Okay, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. Here's a final provocative thought. In a system designed, at its core, to provide benefits and care for work-related injuries, how does this necessary process of seeking independent medical opinions, which serves the goal of objective verification, how does it also create a potential hurdle, maybe even a strategic challenge, that an injured employee has to carefully navigate just to maintain access to the support and care they legitimately